the 1941 attack on Pearl Harbor, the United States instituted rationing. After Pearl Harbor, Americans ran to the stores to purchase things that they thought would be necessary during an emergency. And so stores found themselves with low stock on items like flashlights, batteries, and food. And so when the government introduced rationing, the stores welcomed it. It kept people from overbuying and hoarding commodities like toilet paper, and it wouldn't leave others without similar resources. On December 11, 1941, which was 4 days after the attack on Pearl Harbor and 3 days after declaring war on Japan, the first rationing in the United States was introduced. The first product to be rationed was actually tires, not a food, which were officially no longer for sale on December 11th. A few weeks later, a tire rationing board was given responsibility for distributing the rest of the tires in the United States to various people who needed tires. If you remember from Mr. Huber's lecture, the reason why rubber and tires were rationed was because rubber was used in a lot of military activities, and it was produced in Southeast Asia, especially the Philippines, which Japan was quickly conquering. The Philippines also imported sugar to the United States, and the first food to be rationed was sugar. After sugar came coffee, because coffee was imported mainly from Brazil, and U-boats were sinking merchant ships sailing from Brazil. By 1943, more than 21 items were eventually rationed, including non-food items like typewriters, bicycles, silk, nylon, fuel oil, and then food items like lard, shortening, cheese, margarine, processed food, canned milk, jelly, fruit butter, and dried fruits. Individuals and families were given ration books, and to buy rationed food items, families needed to go to the store with the correct stamps from their ration books. In addition to paying for the cost of the product, they would have to present these stamps. But having enough rationing stamps didn't guarantee that they would be able to purchase an item, since local and national shortages also limited availability of certain foods and other items. Americans looked to the media at the time to give them ideas on how to use the limited resources that they had. Newspapers were an important resource for home cooks, and they tried to navigate this new rationing system. Local newspapers would have current rationing schedules, and they would also have recipes. A lot of the mass media at the time was aimed towards women. Not only were women going into the workforce and working in factories and other places, but they were also responsible for maintaining the home per gender norms of the time. A lot of the images that you see are very female focused. I'm not entirely sure that women at the time wanted to take on this emotional labor of figuring out how to make substitutes for things that they had eaten for years, but that's the way it shook out. A lot of media was also focused at children, trying to convince them that fruits and vegetables were so much more fun to eat than what they remember from before. So let's take a look at some of these recipes. A lot of the time, the choice cuts of meat were put into rations that were sent to soldiers or to other countries. And so cooks were often forced to use different cuts, like fried pork brains here in this recipe. Another interesting recipe that uses tomato soup to make a cake, including raisins, cloves, and cinnamon. Yum. 2 teaspoons of cinnamon, if you like it spicy. Honestly, this one's Canadian. That's all on them. One of the other things the government suggested during World War II was the creation of victory gardens, which would be small plots of land that people, even in urban areas, would farm in order to get fruits and vegetables, generally for their own personal consumption, and then they would can them for use in the wintertime. There's a lot of evidence for victory gardens right here in Ann Arbor. The condos that I used to live in are called Pittsfield Village. They're over on the east side of town between Washtenaw and Packard. And these were built in the 40s for the employees of the Willow Run plant that were building, bombers. And their houses, or condos, or apartments at the time, came with large tracts of land that they were expected to farm for personal consumption. So today's fun activity is watching me cook, or at least attempt to cook, a 3-course meal using proper rationing of the time. We're going to make a salad, some bread, and a meatless main dish. Our first course is Aran-style salad. It's basically a cucumber that would be from a Victory Garden, shaped to look like a leprechaun to celebrate St. Patrick's Day, and then laid out on a bed of greens. Let's see how it goes. All right, our first course is the salad course for our 3-course menu, and we have chosen the Aran-style salad, which was from a McCall's Magazine St. Patrick's Day recipe book. So it says it's a cucumber, remove one end of a cucumber so it will stand upright. So I have a couple knives here that I'm going to use. I have removed the end of the cucumber and it's standing upright. Shape the opposite end like a hat. Below the hat, remove enough of the skin to make a face with proper features. And below that, a shirt in front with tiny buttons of cucumber skin. Cut the cucumber in thin slices without losing its shape. Stand it in the center of a salad bowl surrounded with chicory and watercress. Arrange a necktie of a bit of pimento and serve with French dressing and Tabasco sauce. So, using a knife and a peeler and just a cucumber from the garden, let's see what we do. And there you go, the first course. Could be the stuff of nightmares, could be a delicious salad. Second course is actually pretty common and very easy to make, refrigerator rolls. Essentially, they're just dinner rolls. And the reason why this is rationing is because it uses far less butter and sugar than regular rolls. All right, to start our refrigerator rolls, we are first going to use 1 cake of yeast. It used to come in cakes, but you had to refrigerate it, and then they figured out the awesome technology of drying the yeast out to deactivate it, and I have the equivalent amount of dry activated yeast here. And then the sugar. Mix the yeast and the sugar well. So the only reason this is a ration recipe is because it uses less sugar than you would normally have in a roll recipe. I don't know if that'll change the taste or not. So we're mixing the yeast and the sugar. The yeast will eat up that sugar when we activate it. And then we're adding salt and water. We want lukewarm water because cold water will not wake the yeast up and hot water will kill it. So, how much water? 2 cups of lukewarm water. Give that a little stir. Wake the yeasty beasties. Dogs are excited. Okay, this is weird. It says mix the yeast and sugar well, add salt and water, beat eggs and add to the first mixture. Like legit just into the water. Okay. All right, here we have the dough that we are now going to let rise, and it's supposed to rise in a warm location. So we're gonna cover it with towels and then hopefully it'll double. And then when it doubles, we beat it down and put it in the fridge where it'll double again. All right, wish us luck. All right, welcome to day 2 of ration cooking. We've got our main dish here going. We'll learn about that in a little bit. But as you can see, our refrigerator rolls rose, doubled in size overnight in the refrigerator. And it says that, you know, you are going to make rolls as needed and allow 1 teaspoonful of sugar on top of all the sweet rolls with cinnamon. So we're gonna make some sweet and some savory and then see how it turns out. We are going to test the sweet rolls and the regular dinner rolls.
I want the regular.
Not the regular?
I'll take the cinnamon.
Okay, now unfortunately there's no butter because it's being rationed.
Oh no, no butter. No, no butter.
Tastes like a dinner roll.
Oh my god, you made way too many of these.
It tastes like a dinner roll.
Nope.
What? It tastes like a dinner roll.
No.
How's the sugar one?
Pretty good. Since we don't want to get coronavirus, let's throw this one out so that we don't get Gabe's germs.
Sugar one's good.
Oh, I was gonna wonder if I could throw this up again.
No.
Yeah, sure, I got pepper right there.
Not bad.
Oh.
We got a lot more to eat. Our last dish is the main dish. It's called baked peanuts and it's called a meat alternate. The article that it was posted in says, so wartime rationing has reduced the meat on your family's dinner table, but why do we eat meat anyways? The answer to that is meat is important in the diet, chiefly because of vitamins, proteins, and fats. And another thing, it isn't the only source of these nutrients. The canny housewife takes advantage of the other foods which offer the same nutritious values. Try baked peanuts, a new version of the famous Boston dish, on your family today. So, we're gonna try it. All right, let's get mixing here. We have our peanuts that have been baked down to something very soft, kind of like beans. And it's asking for combine all the ingredients. Okay, well, 1 can of number 2.5 tomatoes. Now that's very interesting because number 2.5 potatoes is actually what we would call 28 ounces of potatoes these days. So they went for a standard that made no sense, and we're gonna cut up these potatoes. All right, then you have brown sugar, 2 tablespoons of brown sugar. Now brown sugar already has molasses in it, so when it asked for more molasses tastes like burnt sugar. Then this is the chili powder, black pepper, and dry mustard. Then it wants 2 tablespoons of tomato paste. And then 2 tablespoons of molasses, which this is the brown rice syrup. Same sweetness, less like you're chewing cigarettes. Okay. See, we got everything. Tomato paste, chili pepper, black pepper, brown pepper, molasses. All right, so this gets mixed together. Crud. And then add it to this. All right, we're gonna put this in the oven at 350 degrees for 2 hours until the sauce is thick. Thick. There we go. There's our finished product. Let's see how it tastes. All right, here's our finished main dish of baked peanuts and bread on the side. So let's dig in. Hot.
Put it on the oven. Pretty sweet.
Mm-hmm. It kind of
Pretty savory.
It's not that bad.
The texture is a bit different than you might expect from
Yeah.
I think a baked bean.
Maybe put it on rice or something.
Doesn't quite taste like peanuts.
Mm-hmm. No. It is way better than I thought it would be.
Mm-hmm.
I thought this was gonna be disgusting, but it's actually kind of good. All right, ration cooking. There we are. All right, thanks for joining us today, learning a little bit about World War II rationing and the fact that I failed home economics in middle school. Hope you learned a little bit about rationing today, and you can look in your pantry and figure out if you have the right stuff to make some of these recipes. Talk to you soon.